And I hope it sheds some light into what's happening in the world with our global with our global shortage of chips. Folks, welcome to another exciting episode of Frugal Power. To those that's watching, Frugal Nation, Frugal Family, I hope you guys are having a great weekend. And today we're going to talk about the shortage of chips. What kind of chips? Well, not really this kind of chips. We're going to talk about the type of chips that goes into this and this: cars, self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles, and a whole bunch of other electronics. Why there is a world shortage of chips. And in this video, what I want to cover is what is the market dynamics, what is happening, why there's a global shortage, what you can do to make some money potentially when you can invest your hard-earned frugal dollars into the market. And by no means am I advocating any type of stock investments or companies. What I want you to do, as you know, the famous YouTube disclaimer, I am just a random guy on YouTube. What I want you to do is take the knowledge I'm giving to you and take a look at what is going on, do your due diligence, research, and then make that investment. And I hope it will do you well. For those of you that's been with me for the first couple of weeks, I thank you sincerely for your support, your subscription. It is just tremendous. Thank you so much. And those that are just watching the first time, if you find the content useful, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe. There's a lot more content coming your way. Now, with that said, let's go into the video today. I'm gonna play you a short clip on what's happening.
The pandemic gradually draws to a close. We've still got two national emergencies that we have to talk about on Mad Money: a horrendously high unemployment rate and a semiconductor shortage that's causing major problems for U.S. manufacturing and competitiveness. We need more chips and we need more jobs.
Okay, so as Jim Cramer and many of the news outlets have said, there is a global shortage of semiconductors. So what is causing this? The cause is COVID. As many of you have known, going back to March of last year, when COVID first hit, companies such as Ford, GM, Chrysler, other manufacturers in the US and also abroad in Europe, Japan, were forecasting a slowdown in manufacturing. Same thing with TV manufacturers, cell phone makers, a host of others. So what they did was they called these suppliers and said, we're not needing that many chips at this point, so hold off. However, they didn't predict what would happen with the stimulus money and the money that was being injected across the global economy. Now, what you see was that there was an increase or sustained demand for these products, TVs, cars, etc. Once the belt in manufacturing gets halted, it doesn't automatically come back on very quickly. So what you see, I'm gonna bring up a chart for you, is the SOXX, which is the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, which includes some of the largest semiconductor companies in this index. And what I want you to look for is the dip in March, okay? I'm gonna bring this right up and we're gonna go through it together. What you see in SOXX, let's go through it quickly for those of you that may be looking at this the first time. If you have looked at my diversification video, I talked about ARKK and also how ETFs work in terms of being a basket of companies. So there's a good way to diversify there. So looking at SOXX, currently it's around $438.50, but that could change when this video drops, okay? We see that it's at its all-time high, and at the same time that it's also paying a dividend. What you're focused on, in addition to a dividend, is how this is being diversified from the standpoint of what's in the portfolio. What you see in the top 10 holdings are Intel Corporation, Broadcom, Qualcomm, Texas Instrument, Nvidia, Taiwan Semiconductor, Micron, Applied Materials, KLA, and Lam Research. All of these are a good basket of companies that make either semiconductors or make the equipment that help companies make these semiconductors, which are critical to this semiconductor industry. And here's a side note: the people who made money during the 1849 gold rush rarely were the ones that were panning for gold. It's the ones that were selling the shovels, the picks, all the equipment to the gold diggers. What I want you to focus on here in this is that when you look at these companies, this is a good basket to put your money in. And I will show you something else when we reference a chart. Look at this from a standpoint of a chart analysis. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into it. What I want you to focus on is just the increase, the move upward of this 1 year chart. You can see in March, which I've highlighted in yellow, is that around that time, the market plummeted. And slowly, the global market starting from May, June, started coming back. And there's another way for us to take a look. We're compared to the S&P 500. The S&P 500, for those that are new to investing, is the broader basket of 500 largest companies that sit in the Standard & Poor's 500. Some get added, some get deleted over the course of a year. Example, case in point was Tesla. Tesla was added, that drove up the share prices, and other companies came out of it. So the way my dad likes to call it is the deadbeats get thrown off and the newcomers, the good shiny babies, come right into the basket. So it's supposed to be an indicative measurement of the broader market. So let's take a look at this chart, okay? And the chart shows that the S&P 500, despite doing really well, as many of you have heard since the COVID market crash, still lagged behind, as you can see in the blue line here, the SOXX, which is this basket of semiconductor chips. So what I want you to do is make a note of that, because as we're talking about shortage, we're relating that concept to what can be done and what's happening in the future. If you look at economics, demand drives people, companies wanting a specific product. They're going to pay extra money for it, such as Ford, GM, etc., because the semiconductors are a lifeblood to their manufacturing process for these new vehicles that are rolling out of the assembly line that requires chips from anything from self-driving, self-stopping, fuel gauge, energy measurement, whole host of things. You guys can do some research. I can post some links down below and you can do some reading. There's a demand. There's no way to avoid it, and there's a shortage. Number two, we're going to talk about how we take this information and translate it into an opportunity. The opportunity is looking, as I said before, for these companies that are going to be part of this manufacturing semiconductor buildup. You probably have heard in this headline here that President Joe Biden has said that has become a national emergency in terms of semiconductors, and they're going through a lot of negotiations with Taiwan. That's why one of the companies that I think has a strong play is Taiwan Semiconductor. Again, by no means because I host Taiwan Semiconductor, you should go out there and run and buy it. It is a company that has outperformed, and we're going to take a look at the chart here, and I'm going to walk you through it of how Taiwan Semiconductor compares to the broader SOXX Philadelphia index. Taiwan Semiconductor has even outperformed the SOXX. That's telling you something. It's a high performer. Now the company, and let's take a look at the numbers for Taiwan Semiconductor, symbol TSM, is that it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a large cap company. It has a market cap of $715 billion. So it's not a mom and pop shop. Companies from AMD to Apple use TSM to manufacture their chips. For those of you that don't know, you can Google that, do some reading. It is one of the world, if not the world's largest foundry. What does that mean? It is the largest company out there that makes chips for other companies. Many chip companies long ago from the United States have moved their manufacturing process outside the United States and have outsourced it to a company such as TSM. And TSM is in a really good spot in terms of wanting and being needed to make these chips. One other thing, TSM also pays a dividend as well of $1.15. So it's something to note that they are profitable, and they will continue to be profitable because of the demand for these chips. Now, how are you going to convert buying TSM if you're starting very small in terms of just the share price? TSM is currently trading at $138 a share, give or take a couple of cents and movements in the market. There's two ways to get into TSM if that is something that you're interested in purchasing. One is either you can buy the shares directly. If you have $1,000 as an example, you can buy probably 7 shares, 6 shares, depending on how the movement is within the market. I always say buy on the red if at all possible. When the stock dips, set a limit order and see if it hits. The other way is to buy the stock within a ETF. What you guys have seen within the SOXX that I brought up, and let's bring it up again, SOXX holds Taiwan Semiconductor in addition to other chip companies. You can also buy SOXX as a trading symbol, and you can hold a good portfolio of all these chip makers that's within one basket. The other way is you can also buy other ETFs that I will also list below and just take you through briefly. The other way of investing in Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM, is to purchase, which is BlackRock's iShares EWT, which is the Taiwan ETF. So what it does in the ETF is a basket of the largest company within Taiwan. And here's another note about Taiwan. President Biden is in strong negotiations with Taiwan to discuss how we can alleviate the semiconductor shortage. You can just Google the news, take a look, and see what's happening. But overall, Taiwan is a necessity in the production because they are the #1 producer for the world. What I want you to do is take a look on the screen here with iShares ETF, which is what I am going to break down, which is the holdings. If you take a look at what is being held in this ETF, again, we're talking about maximizing opportunity and at the same time mitigating our risk. We want to minimize our risk so that we can diversify our holdings. #1 largest holding within this basket is Taiwan Semiconductor in information technology. And in this holding, what we see is that Taiwan Semiconductor here is making up 24.58 of the portfolio with a value of, I gotta count the decimals and the commas here for a second, that's a billion, at $1.55 billion. And it's at 69 million shares, along with another company named Mediatek. Here's a side note on Mediatek, if you guys are interested. Mediatek has been making lower and mid-tier chips for our phones and also our tablets. If you guys use the Amazon product, they generally make a lot of their chips for the Amazon Fire line. It's not an expensive chip, however, it is really kicking Qualcomm's butt in a lot of markets. Again, due to 1, shortage, 2, price point. It is something to consider. Now, I currently hold this ETF in my portfolio because of what's happening with the market dynamics. One more thing, the third holding here is called Hon Hai Precision Industry, aka Foxconn. For those of you like myself that's holding an iPhone, the #1 assembler of iPhones is Foxconn. So it is also another company that's important in the production of our electronics in the value chain. So it's something to consider as we look at how we broaden our diversification and investment. One thing I would like to note is that all the things I'm saying here is something that you should do some strong research on before you make that investment. These are the risks that I'm willing to take on and understand the market. I am bringing this information to you with the hopes that it will open up a new avenue of investment so that we're not all chasing Teslas, sundials, and all these other things. This is a global crisis in manufacturing with a strong demand, and I believe there is an opportunity to take advantage of the cycle and how the market works. So invest your frugal dollars wisely. Guys, I hope you found this content useful and an explanation of why there is a current shortage of semiconductor chips and what it means from our frugal investment perspective, how to take advantage of a market dynamics and how you can play the semiconductor shortage. Again, with everything said, please do your due diligence to see if it makes sense for you. Don't listen to random people on YouTube. Now, I just want to say a word of thank you for all my subscribers and all the folks that are watching. If you like this content, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until the next time, thank you.